Hello, how are you? I hope that you are feeling better. My name is Isabella Plals. Subscribe my channel. It all started one quiet autumn evening. The kind of evening when the wind whistles softly through the trees and the leaves crunch gently beneath your feet. The world slows down, and the past begins to knock softly at the doors of your memory. I had just returned from the city after a particularly grueling work trip. All I wanted was peace solitude. I wanted to soak in a warm bath, sip a little red wine, and let the silence of the countryside ease the tension in my bones. The house I had grown up in, tucked in the hills just outside the suburbs, always felt like a sanctuary. It still smelled of aged wood, lavender, and thyme. But I wasn't alone that week. My sister Tanya had asked me for a favor just days earlier. She was heading out of town for a conference and needed someone to keep an eye on her teenage son. My nephew Darren, just for a few days, she had said, her voice full of gratitude. He's almost an adult now. You won't even notice he's there. I had smiled and agreed, never imagining that those few days would lead me down a path I never expected to tread. Darren was 17 tall for his age, with a charming awkwardness that reminded me so much of his father. He was polite, soft-spoken, and always had his head buried in a book or his phone. We hadn't spent much time together over the years, given how busy life had become, but now here we were under one roof, separated by 2 bedrooms and a hallway, sharing the same air and silences. At first, everything was ordinary. We ate dinner together. We watched a few old movies on the couch. He was respectful, sometimes shy, and never overstepped his boundaries. But as the days passed, I began to notice subtle changes. Little glances that lingered just a moment too long, his footsteps soft and deliberate just outside my door when I thought I was alone. And one night, when I had gotten up for a glass of water, I caught him standing in the hallway, staring at the flicker of light from beneath my bedroom door. He had startled when I asked what he was doing. Just couldn't sleep, he mumbled. I didn't press. Teenagers were strange hormones, sleep patterns, mood swings. I told myself not to overthink it, but something shifted after that night. One evening, as I folded laundry in the living room, Darren came and sat beside me. His knee brushed against mine, and instead of moving away, he stayed. The touch lingered, not inappropriate, not yet, but full of unspoken tension. I tried to ignore the flutter of nerves that stirred deep in my stomach, and then he said, Aunt May, can I ask you something?" he said, voice lower than usual, almost hesitant. Of course, I replied, barely looking up. What would you do if someone you trusted, someone close to you, made you feel things you weren't supposed to feel? I stopped folding my breath, caught for half a second. Are you talking about someone in particular? I asked, my voice calm, steady. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and there it was in his eyes. Vulnerability, confusion, desire, and something else, a plea. Yes, he whispered. I stood up, trying to shake off the tension now clinging to the air. You should go to bed, I said. It's late. He hesitated, but obeyed quietly. Disappearing into his room that night, I didn't sleep. My mind raced in loops. What had I done? Had I led him on? Had I misread things? Or worse, had he misread me? I blamed myself. I blamed the long nights, the loneliness, the shared glances that should have meant nothing but now meant everything. The next day I tried to create distance. I left earlier for errands, cooked quick dinners, and busied myself with chores. But Darren wouldn't let it go. His presence grew more deliberate, more bold, the way he'd touch my shoulder when passing. Behind me, the quiet intensity in his gaze, the way his voice softened only when he spoke to me, and then came the night. I will never forget, I had just finished a bath. The house was quiet, too quiet, wrapped in nothing but a thin robe. I walked toward my room, not realizing Darren was standing just outside my door. He looked at me, eyes wide, with something between awe and hunger. Aunt May, please don't be mad, he said, taking a tentative step forward. Darren, what are you doing? My voice shook, but I didn't move. I think about you, he said, eyes locked on mine all the time. I don't know why, but I can't help it. I closed my eyes. My pulse thundered in my ears. You're confused, I whispered. No, I'm not. I know what I feel. The silence between us stretched into eternity. I could feel the line between right and wrong fraying my heart, screamed at me to be strong to protect him. Not just from the world, but from this moment, I stepped back. You need to go to your room now. He didn't argue. He just turned and walked away. I locked myself in my room and cried. The next morning I called my sister, told her I wasn't feeling well, and that she needed to come back early when she arrived. I didn't explain, I just handed her the keys and kissed her cheek. Darren avoided my gaze the whole time I left that day with a heavy heart, but also with clarity. It wasn't about shame or scandal. It was about protection, about drawing the line, about being the adult, being the shield. Not the temptation. Weeks passed, then months. One day I received a letter in the mail. It was from Darren. He wrote about how he had confused admiration for affection, curiosity for connection. He apologized for putting me in a difficult position and thanked me for stopping things before they could spiral. He said I had taught him something no one else had, that real love has boundaries, and that maturity means knowing when to walk away. I wept reading that letter because in the end, love isn't always about possession or passion. Sometimes it's about restraint, wisdom, and doing the hard thing when it would be easier not to. I still think of Darren. Sometimes he's older, now grown changed. And I hope he remembers that time not with shame, but with the quiet strength that comes from growth. As for me, I carry that week in my heart, a lesson etched deep in the chambers of memory, not as a scar, but as a reminder. Some of the greatest acts of love are the ones where you say thanks for watching.